Welcome to the 19th episode of Vital Questions. As always, I'm your host, Che Guerrero. I thought I had it right. Che Guerrero with
my co-host.
If you guys, again, if you already read the title, this is a very special episode. We have, well, that's what we're titling it. What is it like to stand up to Trump? And we're gonna actually talk to someone who's taking the dude to court and tried to go in that arena, especially in this atmosphere.
Yeah, and actually doing it. So we're really excited to have our second ever guest on Vital Questions. He is an attorney and the former FTC commissioner. His name is Alvaro Bedoya. He, unfortunately, earlier this year was illegally fired by Trump back in March, along with his fellow commissioner, Rebecca Slaughter. But they did not take that quietly. They luckily are challenging the administration, have taken them to court, and have had some recent developments that we'll hear about shortly. So it is an honor to have someone who is actively fighting against the illegal actions of this administration on our show. So let's jump right in and welcome Alvaro. Welcome, Alvaro.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for taking time from this grueling fight you had just to talk to us.
No, it's my pleasure, guys. I've been enjoying watching the show and thrilled to join.
Thank you. Should we start into right with the first question?
Right. I mean, we do have a lot to cover.
Let's do it. Yeah.
But Alvaro, we did have an important or vital question, if you will.
Excellent.
We wanted to start out with.
Yes.
So did you see the recent South Park episode?
I saw some clips.
Oh, great!
I've never seen South Park clips like that before. Yeah, I'm really glad that I probably wouldn't have put it on for my kids.
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't have, just knowing South Park. But that's some NSFW stuff.
We actually have a clip that we wanted to show the people. So let's see if you've seen this clip.
Well, and it's funny because, as you can imagine, and it was not to put you on the spot. We actually were talking about it earlier today. And we were like, oh my God, this would be so funny to start out with.
Yeah. Let's see what you got. Yeah.
So as you can imagine, it was hard to find something that wasn't incredibly problematic. To start out with, but MSNBC, luckily.
we pulled from a news source to be like, we can't get in trouble if MSNBC
hopefully,
let's hear a little.
So this is MSNBC, and then this is the clip that they played. So hopefully we're fine.
Let's do it.
I'm not in the mood right now. Another random commented on my Instagram that you're on the Epstein list.
The Epstein list? Are we still talking about that?
Well, are you on the list or not? It's weird that whenever it comes up, you just tell everyone to relax.
I'm not telling everyone to relax. Relax, guys.
That relaxed guy every time makes me laugh. I hate it, but it does.
So just, we figured we'd start out with some humor because it's very hard to laugh during these times.
Yeah.
But we were just honestly really surprised by the creators of the show and really proud of them because admittedly, thinking back to when we were younger and the idea of South Park was always crude humor and it seemed ridiculous and outlandish and kind of without purpose. But just seeing this recent episode, and actually we've watched some of the last season too, just because we're like, oh, let's see what they've been doing. And they've actually been great at political commentary and addressing real issues in a great way. So just curious on your thoughts on what you've seen in the arts and whether it's South Park, whether it's certain movies that have come out, the whole controversy with Superman, all that stuff. Just curious on your thoughts on how you're seeing the arts develop in this space.
I love that question. And look, so I got little kids 5 and 6. And so if I go to a movie theater, I fall asleep immediately. So
Dogman was a great 2-hour nap. No hate to Dogman.
Oh no, it's peaceful, nice and cool. Your kids are entertained, But I see two things there. The first is they are responding to chaos with chaos. One of the things, and Jay, let's talk about your dad. Let's talk about how when you're a parent, people, kids will misbehave or there'll be chaos, and it's your job to respond, to bring order to chaos, right? And that's true with most good people of good faith, right? If something crazy happens to them, something illegal happens to them, they'll say like, oh, well, I'm going to calm things down. I'm going to take the level a couple notches down. And what's so powerful about what the South Park creators did is they say, no, you're going to be crazy. We're going to be crazy right back.
Yeah.
And we're going to, you think you're crazy? We'll take it up 16 levels.
Yeah.
And what it does is it cuts through the noise, right? Like I haven't watched a South Park episode in how long? I mean, I literally probably a decade or something like that. I watched this episode. Right?
Exactly what we were saying. We're like, we have not watched probably since I was just 20 out of my, like in 20s.
I was going to say
20s.
way too young to probably be watching
it. Yeah. And so like the first lesson is like, you got to be loud and you got to be crazy right back.
Yeah.
And we'll talk, this is a lot of what we did as commissioners. So basically we were, Trump illegally tried to fire us.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people in our shoes said stuff like, oh, well, this was, and look, credit to them. They said, this is illegal. I will, see the president in court. And yeah, we did that part. We were real loud about it, but we also said, you know what? We're not fired. We haven't been fired. We're still commissioners. So we're still issuing statements as commissioners. I went to Iowa as a commissioner, and that turned the scales back on them. And that helped get more attention to the illegality that was happening. So that's what I love about that episode. And it's chaos, responding to chaos with chaos.
Yeah, and that's actually something that let's get into the story a little bit. But when we've seen so much capitulation from other organizations and things like that, to see people like South Park and you in your own way,
I can't claim it. Yeah, I didn't show nudity, AI generated nudity. I didn't do that.
Right, you didn't, but you did send reply all emails in response to a certain new commissioner coming into. Alvaro, let me tell you, as a former corporate lawyer, the guts that it takes to send a reply all email, I mean, that's different.
Because let's go back and tell because this is where you fought, and a lot of people in the courts were giving up. In the beginning, we see, like I said, capitulations with corporations, like they called out Paramount and stuff like that. But you, one of the people that we've seen in this atmosphere, actually say, no, I'm going to take the fight right to the president. So tell us a little bit of people that don't know, like what led you to the FTC, and then what happened once Trump came in, because you already had been there a little bit before he came in.
Yeah. So let me try to boil this down, and because I can rant, so you cut me off.
No, tell us.
So I was a graduate of law school, 2007, and I was a lawyer. I went to Capitol Hill. I worked for Senator Al Franken. I stood up his subcommittee on privacy. And so we did aggressive hearings on Apple, Google, Facebook, and then Snowden happened. And so we were doing aggressive hearings with the NSA. I stood up a little think tank, basically a research group at Georgetown Law. I taught privacy law there, but really in that think tank, I looked at how surveillance hurts religious minorities, ethnic, racial minorities, the surveillance of Martin Luther King, the surveillance of Mormons in the Utah territory. And so that was kind of my deal. I looked a lot at how government and corporate surveillance hurt people. So in 2021, it was pandemic, so it all just kind of mushes together. So like early in the pandemic, I was nominated by President Biden to the FTC. I was confirmed in May of 2022, and
this is Congress confirmation kind of thing.
Oh yeah, man. So so basically, I thought
you applied through Indeed.
No. For the record, I know the right process. Jesus.
I'm sorry, I'm from so far from this kind of world that I'm like, hey, you just went on Indeed, and Biden's looking for new FTC.
Exactly. We're looking for what are the words they use? 10
years experience.
10 years experience, mission driven, team player.
40 weeks.
40 weeks. Yeah.
40 weeks, right.
No, so I got nominated and I got confirmed, and no Republican voted for me because of how critical I'd been about President Trump. Even though actually in the meetings, a lot of them would say like, hey man, I appreciate what you're doing on privacy, but look, because of what you said about Trump, we can't vote for you. And go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's sort of where we're at now. That these Republicans, as much as they want to vote against them, they have no spine to actually vote against them.
Right. The signs were already there.
The
for a
signs
while.
were already there. I mean, these people coming up to you, and this is sort of what I hate about I hear a lot of this from DC. That people go, oh, you know, behind closed doors, they were so nice to me. But then as soon as, you know, so that's why a lot of people think that DC is like the WWE, that behind closed doors, everybody's like, hey, great match out there. But then once you get out there, they're like, look at you, Republicans, you know, it's like.
Yeah. You know, it's that has always been a dynamic in DC, but it was only this experience. So basically, I got in, I was there, and these jobs, I was illegally fired by the president. And some of your listeners may be saying, like, dude, I get fired. I've gotten fired like 3 or 4 times, you know, last decade. You know, what's the big deal? And these are jobs where the president isn't supposed to be able to fire you for no reason, and that's so that him and his donors can't just pick and choose what mergers go through by firing uppity commissioners. And so I get fired, and you know, you were just saying, what were you just saying, Che? I lost the thread for a second. You can tell this is an actual conversation.
No, like behind closed doors, you know.
Oh, yes. And so one of the things they say about DC, have you ever heard that saying, if you want a friend in DC, you know, get a dog?
Yeah.
All right. So I didn't really learn what that meant until this experience, because I get illegally fired. And what you're seeing happen in DC is a place full of ambitious people, right? And Che, you know, La co-host, I think you may or may not have a background in the law, so you're familiar with this. Che, you know, you're in the world of comedy. That's a place where ambition's really important. And DC's like that, but I never learned what this meant until this firing, because after this firing, there'd be Republicans on the other side, and I couldn't predict who would actually text me and say, hey man, I'm so sorry about what happened to you. You know, I'm thinking of you and your family, you know, and then there's other people who I'd spent years working with who just were acting like I didn't exist.
Wow.
And you learn, and why is that? It's because in this Trump administration, it's all about loyalty. It's all about, will you stand with us even when we do overtly illegal stuff? Are you still going to Roman salute all the way? That's what this administration is about. And it's much less about, is it right? Is it legal? And so that's what I'm seeing a lot of. I'm seeing a lot of this dynamic where it doesn't matter. It's that DC thing of behind closed doors is even gone now. It's just what do I need to do to get up?
Because they're gossiping behind closed doors now. Like, oh, do you hear? Like, so and so was hanging out with, you know, Alvaro at the, you know, at 16 handles getting yogurt or something.
And there was this particular moment that stood out to me. So there's a new commissioner who was confirmed, and frankly, you know, I work with the guy a little bit, and there's this interesting coalition among populist Republicans and populist Democrats who are mostly focused on the little guy, right? Like the person working for minimum wage, you know, the small business owner getting screwed. And this new commissioner was from that wing of the party, like really focused on small business. And so I'd done some work with him. And honestly, I was looking forward to him being on the commission. And so I'm sitting in his confirmation hearing, and he gets up there, and this one senator asks him, if the president gives you an illegal order, will you follow that order? And he can't say no. He does not answer no. Instead, he says, look, I'm here to serve, you know, the American people, blah, blah, blah. And the senator cuts him off. This was Tammy Duckworth, the war veteran from Illinois. And she says, no. I just want to know this really super simple question. If the president asks you to do something illegal, will you say no? And this man could not say no. And if I can like convey anything to you and your listeners, it's that stuff is getting real weird down here. It's getting real weird where people can't just say out loud, I will not follow an illegal order. because it means they'll get kicked out of that club. That's
Oh,
where we
wow.
are in DC right now, where you gotta just be all the way, or
Yeah.
you're nowhere.
And honestly, that's helpful to hear because you see glimpses of that, right? In certain hearings and in meetings at the few bits that you're able to see from the public, but to have someone that's been on the ground and you've been, in DC since 2007, so you have seen the shift and you've seen the changes in people, right? You mentioned yourself the relationships you've had with people that have kind of shifted throughout this time. And it's weird because I think I might have mentioned this when we first met a couple months ago. From my corporate background, this the irony of people saying, "Hey, we need to have Trump come in and treat this like a business," right? He's a businessman. He's going to run it like a business. Ironically, this is kind of running it like a business, a really like messed up corporate entity that's kind of like
Or
really toxic, you know?
or like a Latin American business that we all grew up with, where like
Right.
stuff gets done if you pay the right guy, and like
Exactly.
or like the governments we grew up with. So I'm for Peru, and like
Yeah.
you want to get stuff done, you got to pay it used to be you got to pay the right guy,
Mhm.
and so I'm not talking about Latin American business now. I'm talking about
Mhm.
like old school, like the world where
Dictatorship.
Yeah, during
Yeah.
dictatorship.
dictatorship.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
And that's how
Yeah.
he's building this up. And so like, and not to, hopefully I'm not taking too far back here, but like
No.
when you were asking, when they were saying, "Hey, would you do anything illegal?" What exactly, can you give us a little bit of the role of the FTC and a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
where what was the work that you were doing that ultimately got you fired? Because it wasn't just because Alvaro was eating the donuts in the break room too much. No, they fired you because of your ideology. They let you
That's
go
right.
because of what you stood for.
That's right. So the FTC sues fraudsters and monopolists.
Not
Martin
the guy on the
Shkreli,
board game. That guy? No.
that guy, we
Yeah.
sued that guy. That guy's gone.
Yeah.
But no, Martin Shkreli. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Martin Shkreli, he did this thing where he would find the maker of an orphan drug. That is a drug that isn't offered by anyone else.
Right.
He would buy that drug and just jack up the price. And so there's all these people who depend on that drug to survive, used to pay maybe $25 a month for
Right.
it. Suddenly they're paying $2,500.
Yeah, that pharma bro, if you guys
The
remember that.
pharma
Yeah.
bro, Martin
Yeah.
Shkreli.
Yeah.
We're the guys, our people are the folks who banned that guy from the pharma industry for life. Okay. Here's another example. Kroger and Albertsons. Most people might hear Kroger and Albertsons and they may not readily identify that pretty much all the supermarkets around you, most of them or a lot of them are either Kroger or Albertsons. I'm in DC right now, or I'm in Rockville, Maryland, and Safeway and Harris Teeter are both brands under these companies. And so you might, and
we're in
there was
Acme County. We're in
in
Acme
County?
Country. Acme Country. That's what
Is that right?
Right? Yeah,
So
Acme and
I
ShopRite
wish
Country.
I wish I knew if there were banners. When we were considering this merger, I would have known that off the top of my head. But basically, this was a merger of these two giants, and the company spent $1 billion trying to merge, and all this stuff came out in our investigation that was revealed at trial. One thing was that they were marking up the price of milk and eggs above inflation.
Jesus.
Right? Everyone talks about something called price gouging. So this is what they would do. Yeah. They would see an opening and they would blame it on inflation, but just mark up the price above inflation. The union guys at these companies also said, "Hey, look, if you merge the supermarket down the street with us, we're not going to be able to point to that supermarket down the street for better wages or better working conditions if we merge, right? It'll all just be one crappy workplace." And so we sued, we stopped that merger. This was the largest grocery store merger in history. We stopped it. We kept the price of groceries going further up. But here's other quick examples, like we sued one of the biggest corporate landlords in the country, a company with a really creepy name of Graystar. I don't know about you. That name just kind of creeps me out. But one thing they would do is they would tell their tenants, "Oh, you don't want cockroaches in your building. Oh, you're going to have to pay a special fee for extermination." And they would pack their rent checks with all these hidden junk fees.
Yeah, which is illegal.
Yeah.
Well, we sued them. Yeah, we're trying to stop it. And so, another example is this company tried to corner the market on these new kinds of cancer drugs. We shut that down. And so basically, when companies lie to consumers, or when they try to use their power to screw over, consumers through price hikes or by cutting wages, we are the independent agency that jumps in to stop that.
Okay.
And actually, sorry, just a quick
please go ahead.
point,
Yeah.
because especially with everything that happened with Paramount and, the Skydance,
That was going to be my question.
merger and all that, we've talked about that. I have an M&A background as well, so fully understand the importance of this issue. But I think for our listeners who maybe aren't as well versed, it would be helpful to hear, especially from you, essentially why everyday people should care about these big business ventures, right? These big mergers and transactions that sound really high level and really businessy, and who cares, right? This doesn't affect my day to day. If you can help people understand how it actually does affect their day to day, especially for a type of industry like media, would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. So, a couple thoughts on how media consolidation hurts people. So, one of the things that has been really helpful for young artists, young directors, young producers, is having a lot of different companies that compete for their products. And so this for whether it's a pilot, right, or whether it's a show, a full show, whether it's a
podcast,
script, a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And there was a moment a couple of years ago where there was this just explosion of different media companies jumping into streaming. And that was a bonanza for up and coming young artists who don't know anyone, but just have a lot of talent. And so a world where all those companies just gobble each other up is a world where, number one, you have less competition for those subscriptions and for those streaming services. That means they can jack up prices on those subscriptions. It also means that there are far fewer companies who might compete for that script, compete for that pilot. And who that hurts is not the Taylor Swift and Joe Rogan of the world. Who it hurts is the Che Guerrero and La Co-host of the world, right? Who are starting making inroads in these industries, who no longer can go to this guy and say, "Oh, you're going to pay me this? Oh, I'm going to go over here and see if I can get a better deal," right? Or just have more shots, on target to see if you win. And so the other dynamic, this weird dynamic that's starting to play out, you've seen this in a couple different mergers, is the merger should come down to how it affects consumers, small businesses, and workers. That's why we have antitrust laws to begin with. They're supposed to provide a level playing field for the little guy, right? Whether the little guy is the startup, media venture like you guys are, or the union worker, or the small farmer. Like that is who antitrust law is supposed to help. And so what's starting to happen, though, is these big mergers are coming before law enforcement in the Trump administration. And the Trump administration is starting to say, like, we don't really care what, and actually I shouldn't say the Trump administration, because there's actually some law enforcers, some Republican law enforcers who are still trying to do their jobs, who are being kicked out. Because like what I don't want, one thing this job taught me is like when you spend all day meeting with farmers, small business owners and workers and consumer groups, you stop seeing things as like left versus right. You start seeing things as the money at the top versus everyone else. And you see how when you don't have money, if you're a small business owner or a worker, you actually have a lot in common, whether you're in like deep red Iowa or, Queens in New York City. And so what you're seeing, this Paramount Skydance merger comes out and it goes through, but it goes through with these extremely weird conditions that the FCC appears to put in place that say, we're going to let this like massive merger go through that's going to further consolidate the media ecosystem. And we're not going to put like conditions to help consumers or whatever on there. Because sometimes if you don't block a merger outright, you might put conditions on it. Instead, they said, we're going to put a bias monitor on it to make sure that
Yeah.
that this isn't politically biased against who? Against Trump.
Yeah,
Right?
that was like the only stipulation for it, for the merger to go through.
The other one appears to have been to cancel the Colbert Show.
Right.
The Colbert
Yes,
Report.
of course.
Well, what I was going to tell you is that was the part, just sorry, funny.
Yeah,
going back to the South Park episode, that was the part when they were like, oh yeah, we're not going to have anything against Trump. And then it was the whole AI portion. Alvaro, you have to watch that episode. It's ridiculous.
I will. I didn't watch the whole thing. I started watching it. I was like, oh wow, this is like kind of pornography.
Oh no, it's not appropriate.
I should probably stop watching this.
For sure. It's not appropriate in the slightest. But no, they used AI, and I won't ruin it, right? But like AI video to do, a very quote unquote nice portrayal of Trump. But it was getting at that stipulation of, you can't show any bias against Trump, which is such a ridiculous, to your point.
It just has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with our jobs.
Right.
Like it has not, our job is to provide a level playing field for the little guy, the small business, the small farmer, the worker, the consumer, and like making sure that, CBS is nice to Trump has nothing to do with that. Here's another example where I was talking about the difference between, the people who are just saying, yes, my dear leader, to whatever this administration seems to want, and those who are, the Republicans who are busy trying to do their jobs. So there's this other mega merger called HPE Juniper, Hewlett Packard Juniper, has to do with networking and cloud services. And the reporting that's coming out is that Gail Slater, who's the head of DOJ antitrust, who is this like, I think she was described this morning as like a feisty Irish, antitrust enforcer, who looked like she is big in Republican circles. Like, I don't agree with her on everything, but I agree with her that antitrust law should be enforced. It seems that she and two of her deputies, a guy named Roger Alford and a guy named Bill Renner, said like, no, this merger is anti-competitive. And what happened, this like mega Trump lobbyist who first of all came out against the merger, the reporting and the rumors is that this guy got $1 million consulting fee and started having, conversations over martinis, at the private club in DC. And suddenly the merger goes through. And who is suddenly out of a job? That guy, Roger, and that guy, Bill, who were just trying to do their jobs and just trying to protect that level playing field. And so like what's happening right now in DC is not even about Republican versus Democrat. That's not what this is about. This is about, are you for the president's billionaire donors and billionaire and multimillionaire lobbyists, or are you for the law and the little guy? And if you're for the former, great, you're good, right? You're golden. But if you're for the latter, you're out. That's what's happening right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, just circling back to when everything happened back in March, I know that I read and also heard from our conversation that there were quote unquote pizza doxings that were happening, right, with pizza deliveries. And apparently both you and Rebecca Slaughter received a pizza delivery, along with, we were hearing accounts from different judges and just a lot of different people in government, right, that they were receiving some really horrid pizza deliveries. I'm thinking of a judge, I think it was in New Jersey, that had a reference to her son who was killed earlier, and it had a like kind of a veiled threat in it. There was just a lot of these weird pizza delivery things that seemed to be really ominous, right? So I believe that was another tactic, right?
Yeah, and it's even more serious than that. A lot of the full extent of it hasn't come out, but basically, once I started pushing back on the way this administration wasn't trying to keep grocery prices low, wasn't looking out for the little guy, but focused on these like weird, weird culture war initiatives. Like, some people on the right, called people on the left woke. This is just like wokeism, like just to use their frame, this is wokeism on the right. So like they, and just to explain why, what started happening with me. So basically I get in, and the new chair, like Trump gets in and he does a lot of crazy stuff, but one stuff, he the broken clock, he does say like, look, there's a cost of living emergency in this country, and we need to do everything possible to bring down costs. And you know what? That is one thing I can agree with. Yes, we need to bring down costs. And I work at an agency, or worked at an agency that was singularly, I'm still working out present past tense, that is like singularly capable of getting at this cost thing. And but the new guy in charge doesn't do anything about cost. Instead, week one, he like does a press release that he's banning DEI. He tweets about it, calls an emergency vote, not on the price of eggs, but on DEI.
Right.
Issues a second press release and then tweets out that press release. And then the rest of the month he spends tweeting about like books about trans people and doing nothing about this stuff. So I started being really loud about how he's not doing his job. Like he should focus on like the price of eggs.
Yeah.
And suddenly I started getting these text messages to my phone that said, and these calls that said, Mr. Bedoya, I hear,
Bedoya, if you're gonna threaten me, get it right. Call me back. Start again.
so I think this was part of the scam. I started getting these text messages saying, Mr. Bedoya, we'd be glad to help you with that line of credit. We're ready to offer you up to $10 million on a short-term business loan. And I started getting these calls saying, hey, is this Alvaro Bedoya? Is this the owner of Bedoya Transmissions? And so what basically happened is people were trying to take out lines of credit in my name to harass me. And to get me to try to stop. And so I had to freeze my credit. I had to put a fraud alert on all my credit agency reports. And then the day that we get fired and we immediately come out and say, this isn't about us. This is about the oligarchs over the president's shoulder who we were cracking down on. This is corrupt. We basically just went out full bore. That night, I was downstairs in my basement, like doing phone calls with the press. And I get this alert on my phone that says like Domino's Pizza is coming by with your order. And I was like, oh, cool. This is some buddy of mine who knows I'm up late and is sending me a pizza just to say, hey, man, I got you. Right. Yeah. And so I get the knock at the door at like 11:30 or midnight and we open it up and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I'm like looking at the receipt and try to see who this was to try to thank them. And I asked the pizza guy, the Domino's guy, I was like, hey, man, did you get a tip? And the guy's like, oh, no, I didn't get a tip. And I said, all right, well, I don't have any cash. Do you have Venmo or Cash App? What do you have? And he's like, oh, well, I think I have Cash App. But he's like, but sir, like, you have to pay for this. And I was like, that's weird. Like, why would a friend of mine send me a pizza without paying for it? And then I was like, and then I opened up the pizza and it was covered in pork. And it had bacon on it, and we don't eat bacon in our house. And so I was like, this is weird. And that's when I started piecing together that, no, this isn't someone who's trying to be nice to me. This is someone who's trying to tell me I know where you live. Right. And so, the next day I installed a home security system. And so this is what happens when you speak out. Is that people start harassing you, people start trying to point out, hey, I know where you live, people trying to mess with your credit. That's the kind of stuff that happens,
especially for the position that you're in, because you are going after these you're right, the people at the top who want to continue exploiting the little guy. And now speaking to you more than ever, when we were saying this country's being run like a business, it's being run like a Trump business. Like the rich people want to essentially enslave us as much as they can now, take away from us as much as they can, put us in an even worse position that they can. At what point is, I'm sorry, I know I'm getting out of your job here and I'm getting philosophical.
Great. No, I love this.
Is it enough for them? Do you know what I mean? Like at what point is it just, money gets you two things. I think at a certain point, it gets you a little bit of happiness. And then after that, it just gets you power. And that's what these people are all in it for. It's just to be able to control narratives and to control other people. And it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting, it's just like,
no, this is,
infiltrating
I know
your
exactly
department so they can get richer.
I know exactly what you mean. And I'll tell you two things. The first is, in a way, it didn't used to be this way. I'm not one of those people who likes to look back and be like, well, if we could return to 1970, but there is a way in which our economy worked better 50 years ago. And the other thing we're missing now is a sense of shame. And so, let me tell you quickly two stories. So the first is, has to do with Minnesota. So Minnesota is this really interesting state. And I worked for the state of Minnesota for 5 years as chief counsel to Senator Franken. And what you do in Minnesota is as a Senate staffer, you travel the state. And so Minnesota has all these Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies headquartered in it, like General Mills, Target, 3M. These are all Minnesota companies, and Minnesotans are proud to have these companies. Mayo Clinic, home based in Minnesota, and but Minnesota also has like this strong Scandinavian egalitarian influence, where it's considered like vulgar to just have these huge displays of wealth. And I remember I was in Northfield, Minnesota, and I was with a colleague of mine, and she pointed out this like super normal house on the block. And she said something like, "Oh, that's the house for the CEO of General Mills." And it wasn't General Mills, but it was like a big company. And I wish I remember which one it was. And I was like, "That's the CEO of who?" And she's like, yeah, that's the CEO of General Mills. And I was like, what planet am I on where that dude or that lady, I don't know, owns that house? And she said, well, yeah, that's Minnesota. Minnesota is all about, like, it's not considered polite to go around flaunting your wealth like that. And I was like, wow, I haven't encountered that way of being wealthy before. And contrast that to Jeff Bezos today, where I urge anyone who's listening to this, I urge you guys to go Google Bernie Sanders Amazon warehouse investigation. And what Bernie Sanders staffers did over the course of years, this was like Warren Gunnels and all of these guys working for them, is that they just started interviewing Amazon workers, asking Amazon for documents, like pressuring them for documents. And what they found is that Amazon warehouses, by policy, press their workers to injury. They force them to work so fast, so hard that their wrists break, that their rotator cuffs break, the discs in their spines bulge and break. And then there is a company policy, according to this investigation, of denying those workers referrals to outside healthcare for 21 days. Because there's this OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Act, reporting requirement that says, like, that's for some reason that 21-day mark is like triggers special reporting, like if someone has to be reported out within that window. And by policy, people don't get referred out. The other thing I learned is that from Reddit, not the Sanders report, but from Reddit, is that workers are getting injured so often that Amazon caps the amount of painkillers they get and has these vending machines on the warehouse floor that dispense not chips or soda, but painkillers. And contrast that to the fact that Jeff Bezos is on some $255 million yacht, getting married in Venice with some $50 million wedding to his wife, Lauren Sanchez. Like, it is just, we have lost a sense of shame. Right. This is a vulgar display of wealth. It is vulgar to drive your workers to injure themselves so that you can get married with your sweetheart on your yacht in Venice.
Yeah. Because I don't understand how people don't see that grotesque amount of wealth. Like, the fact that Jeff Bezos has more than entire nations, right? And that people are still like, yeah, but these damn pesky regulations are stopping him from getting more. It's like he's already more powerful than the nations.
Yeah, weird support that billionaires have been getting, even at a time like currently this year, more and more people as time goes on are struggling, whether it's because of cuts to funding, cuts to this, cuts to that. And now you're describing OSHA, which is another, I believe, regulatory body that has gotten a bunch of cuts and a bunch of people have been removed and new people installed, right? So I just don't understand this I don't know if it's misconception, ignorance, whatever it is, that people don't see. Billionaires are actually the bad ones. It's not the people that are scraping by. It's not the immigrants. It's not even undocumented people,
That's
right?
what I was gonna say. How do in your field, how do people so quick to say immigrants are the problem, but billionaires are the solution. How are
Yeah.
people still so full with this trickle-down economic stuff that is
Yeah.
just proven time and time again does not work?
Yeah. So I have some ideas, but for me, what it boils down to is you got to be really skeptical of any analysis in which the least powerful people are the most responsible for your problems.
Yep.
And that is the bill of goods that's being sold to Americans across the country. And for me, when I see this stuff on immigrants, I think two things. I think of this room full of construction workers I met with down in Little Havana in Miami, and I think about how the corporate CEOs that I had to sue, that I sued. I didn't have to sue. I someone enjoyed suing them.
I was going to say,
but how they were treated, and all of this goes to this idea, which is, it is good to go to the court to protest for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That is good, right? It is good to protest ICE. But what is also good is, I think we need to start framing, what's happening to immigrants, not in terms of left versus right and immigrant versus native, but rather the way in which billionaires are exploiting immigrants just like they're exploiting everyone else, and contrasting the way when that lady who cleans houses breaks the law, how she's treated. Contrast that with what happens when Jeff Bezos breaks the law. Look at how he's treated. And so I mean, look, like I met with these construction workers down in like Jose Marti Park in Miami in early spring. Okay. And these are the guys. So Miami is the new destination for billionaires. Okay. Bezos built his new move down there. All these hedge fund managers are moving down there. Who builds their skyscrapers and their mansions? Immigrant construction workers. And so I met at like 8 o'clock, on a Tuesday night in like April with these guys. I show up. It's like a soupy 80 degrees. It's already in early April, right?
Yeah.
I show up and we're meeting this amazing nonprofit called We Count organized it. And I was there with my colleagues, Max Miller, Catherine Sanchez. We're around the table, and these guys start trickling in from just having left their jobs. It's like 8 o'clock, right? And the purpose of this was to ask them, what is the biggest problem you have right now? And you know what they said? They said, we don't have water. We don't have water. We go to the work site, and we are in 100-degree heat in April in Miami, and these guys aren't giving us water. And literally, they are dying. I think it's you'll look it up, but it's like every couple of weeks, another worker dies of heat stroke. And that's a fancy way of saying a worker dies of thirst and heat. Okay? And take a step back, and literally you got these guys saying, yeah, I was working for hours and hours and hours and just staring at this cooler with our only source of water in it, and it was locked. So what I want people to hear is like,
made me thirsty.
Look, I understand that there's some American kids, who aren't immigrants, who grew up watching their dad work construction, and then like suddenly that industry is dominated by, people with names like us, right? And they're like, wait, something's off here. And I understand that there may be, that may not feel right to them. But what I would say to them is like, please think about who's getting rich, right? You think it's that guy in that room in Miami who literally gets off the job at like 7:30 and whose main complaint is life that he doesn't have water at his job? Or you think it's that, multi-millionaire or billionaire corporate developer who is toasting his latest development over wine and steak, right? Follow the money. Here's the other thing. You think if you stop employing those immigrant workers, that those jobs will start being W-2 jobs instead of 1099 jobs, you think those employers are going to start paying overtime and unemployment insurance?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
out of nowhere, you think they're going to do that? No.
Yeah.
Immigrants are there because corporate employers started doing stuff like saying, you know, oh no, we're not going to pay you overtime. We're not going to pay you unemployment insurance. We're going to call
Healthcare, any other stuff,
healthcare.
basic stuff of a job. None of that.
That's right. They said, no, we're going to call you an independent contractor. Even though you show up on the job on site, we tell you what to do, how to do it, with who to do it. We're going to say that you have your own business and we're going to hire you that way. And so, you know, putting people in alligator Alcatraz does nothing to help that native born worker, you know, get that better job when billionaires are still going to be screwing people on the terms of their work. And so I'm going to pause in that rant, and then I can tell you about how billionaires are treated. Should I keep going? You tell me.
Well, no. I did have a question there, but you go.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
if you had anything, because I want to have one question for you.
No, I was
have in my pocket.
in your pocket. You've been waiting.
Mhm.
No, I was just gonna say, kind of piggybacking off of that and echoing the sentiments about following the money and the dichotomy of how these two groups of people are treated. Even looking at all the penalties that this administration is putting on the undocumented community and for working without authorization and all this stuff, we don't hear a lot of conversation of any penalties being imposed on their employers and the people that are exploiting them and the people that are, to your point, right? Like not offering the benefits, not offering water to survive, right? We don't hear any of that, and no one questions that in the way that should be questioned. So it's just another point to your argument.
Yes, and here's the other thing I was going to say. So you guys are adults. I'm an adult. You're an adult long enough. Eventually, someone close to you breaks the law, or you break the law. You get in some trouble with the law. Okay, and all of us understand that people make mistakes. Okay, and sometimes people make big mistakes. All right, but what I see after 3 years in law enforcement is this yawning, vulgar gulf between how billionaire CEOs who steal millions of dollars or more from regular people are treated versus that lady who cleans houses or that guy who mows lawns is treated. So let me paint you a picture of what it looks like when a billionaire CEO or a billionaire company breaks the law. And this is from Lena Khan's FTC. There has not been a more tough on corporate crime, tough on corporate law breaking FTC than under Chair Lena Khan. And so what Chair Khan said is, I don't care how wealthy these companies are. I don't care who's cool in Davos or that Jackson Hole or that place Sun Valley all these CEOs go to. Like, I don't give an F, is what she said. She says, if you break the law, you're going to have to answer for that. So in that FTC, you know, when a company breaks the law, what you get is a letter. What you get is a mean letter saying, turn over some documents. Then you get a meaner letter that's a subpoena saying, no, you got to start turning over some documents. Then you get invited to a Zoom at 11:30 a.m. or 3 p.m. to discuss your potential law breaking. So your, millionaire lawyers can try to persuade our staff that we shouldn't sue them, right? Then there's more Zoom calls. Then there's documents sent. And then it gets escalated to the bureau director, and they have a meeting over Zoom or in person about how this company appears to have broken the law, and we're probably about to sue them, giving the company the chance to persuade us why we shouldn't sue them. And then the company has up to 5 separate meetings with commissioners where they fly those $1 million lawyers into what used to be my office in 600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They get led into my office and they sit around my old conference table and try to persuade me why, no, sir, you should not actually sue us because you see, we're actually going, we're actually abiding by the law. And then and only then do they get sued. Okay? Contrast
compare that. Yeah, I was gonna think, yes, go ahead.
Contrast that to the videos I've seen of the mom about to pick up her son from school getting slammed up against the back of some pickup truck literally begging, please let me go pick up my kid from school. Please let me go pick up my kid from school. Or the video I keep on watching from Waltham, Mass. I forget the exact town in Massachusetts, where you got this lady running out in the street holding a baby bottle, getting slammed up against the asphalt in the road. You know, like, I bet you that lady at worst is guilty of crossing the border illegally, or more likely overstaying a visa, which isn't even a crime.
Right.
It isn't even something you go to jail for.
Yeah.
And so all this is to say, what I want to try to do is start talking about how immigrants are working people. Immigrants are make this less about Republicans and Democrats and more about how immigrants are getting screwed by the same people who are screwing the rest of everyone else.
Yep.
And how making them the scapegoat, making them the enemy, isn't going to make that construction job and homestead any better unless if you go after the actual people with power who are the president's billionaire donors.
Yeah. You know, and even people are like, oh, they're not going to take this job because it doesn't pay well enough. Let's just say some U.S. citizens actually take these jobs. Once they start realizing how much they're actually abused at these jobs, they'd be like, whoa, what the heck is this? What do you mean I can't drink water? What do you mean? You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think, admittedly, that's by design, right? That's probably why they don't want U.S. citizens, because they know that U.S. citizens are more likely to go to OSHA. They know what OSHA is, right? They know they're more likely to, at bare minimum, look up their rights and have a vague idea of, okay, well, I've heard of the FTC and I've heard of OSHA and I've heard of, there's things, right? There's these there's these parts of government. I think I can get help. And they bother to look versus someone who is undocumented and feels like they actually have no protections, which, again, for a reminder for all of our listeners, that's not actually true, because there's certain protections that apply to anyone that is physically here in the US, but that's a different point. But if you compare it to them, most people in that population are just scared to ruffle any feathers. So they're likely to just kind of grin and bear it, unfortunately, and are more likely to suffer some really severe consequences.
You know what's funny you say that? One of the first jobs that I had, I worked as a nursing assistant at a hospital, and I didn't know I was part of a union, which I was, but I didn't know it. And I had a supervisor who was just like harassing me, just felt like very like they were just harassing me, intimidating me, all this stuff. And I had a coworker, lovely older Black woman, going, is that guy bothering you? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Like, you know, I'm just working. It's fine. She's like, no, you're part of a union. I'm a union rep. I got your back. Let's sit him down. Let's get him off your back. Let's talk about. And then she really helped me realize like how much power I actually do have and how much I could actually stand up for myself. And after that, I think my boss hated me even more because he knew that, like, oh, now he has the tools to stand up for himself.
Exactly.
And that's what they don't want.
Yeah.
You know, well, maybe at one point it was like this harassment because he could. Now it was this hatred because I was like smart enough to stand up to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what they don't want. They don't want people to even have the ability to stand up for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. And you said something that I'm trying to remember that was really powerful. I'm trying to think of I'll remember it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No worries.
But I did have one question for you, and I don't know how many more stuff maybe the co-host wanted to bring up, but
no,
I have one thing for you. One thing that I always try to get people to understand is the global implications of trade, actually, because a lot of the countries that people are coming from are dealing with a very long history of trade agreements being made up through, you know, war, conquest, things like that. And, you know, not to use this word so much, but, you know, the United States a lot of the time claims who are the winners and losers. You know, those are Trump's kind of word. And through a lot of, you know, history, you know, bribery, dictatorships or whatever, we have a trade system that is actually, in my eyes, way more favorable to the United States. And that's where a lot of people, I feel like, don't understand why people come from other countries, is to not only escape atrocities, but it's also a lot of work, job, resources have been funneled to come to the US. So a lot of people have to come here in order to find the work that has been no longer available to them in their home countries. So one of the things that I'm seeing is like, what is the FTC's goal maybe on a global scale? And is there anything that could be done to try and make global trade more fair to those countries that have been historically being exploited by Western countries like the United States? Big question. You got 40 seconds. Go fix it. Fix it.
Yeah. So look, I don't know if I have the exact answer to that question, but I do have something I can share about the broader trend that goes back to what Lecojo said about the earlier. And I remembered it. It was that the companies are looking for these workers, and getting to the international dimensions of trade, you have a lot of instances where American companies go to Central and South America expressly to recruit people for these jobs, so that they know they have a captive workforce who's afraid to speak out. And so this is by design, you know, and so that was the thing I was blanking on for a second. And look, it is a number of things. And look, I am not an economic expert, but I do see how NAFTA, for example, did a lot of, wreaked a lot of havoc, not just for the United States, but also for Mexico. You had a flood of goods going into Mexico that previously had been, had been manufactured, made, by local people, and you had the other thing going on where factories were set up in Mexico that used to be in the United States. And so who won are the people who own the companies, not the people working in them. And I don't know what the answer is. I do think that tariffs that are put in place in an intelligent, measured manner that protect certain industries we think are important to have in the United States, that's good. Now, insane clown tariffs are the opposite. Waking up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm going to give you a 53% tariff because, I got a crick in my neck, and you said something I didn't like on social media, like that is not...
sounds like a terrible band name. Like,
yeah, exactly. That sounds like a DC, like people who work during the day, but we're the insane clown tariffs at night. But like, I do think that restructuring trade around the needs of working people and not private equity, hedge funds, and billionaire CEOs is what we're looking for. And this is what I struggle with because, the president's coalition is not a monolith. A lot of Latinos voted for President Trump. A majority of Latino men, I think it was, voted for President Trump. And what I see in that is, I don't see, some may be self-hating Latinos, right? But I think most are like people who don't pay too much attention to politics, who are like, look, there's like a nice lady over there who's talking about democracy and reproductive rights, and that's all good. But this guy over here, he's kind of crazy, but he's telling me that I'll be able to make rent. And he's telling me that I'm going to be able to get a job quicker, and the job's going to make me more money. And like, this is the biggest lie of the Trump administration, because a lot of working people voted for him because they thought they're going to be able to make rent. And instead, he's just kicking millions of people off of Medicaid, pardon me. And this is the opportunity, I think, for people who care about working people, which is point out those lies and actually come out with concrete plans to help working people, as opposed to, I don't know, not doing anything and just sitting on your butt and not doing anything when the president does this stuff. Or sorry, I'm in rant mode again. So you guys jump in.
You got me seeing so much stuff about like what. First of all, I don't. I wish Trump, be gone from office tomorrow. But I understand more than anything what you were saying now, because what is simpler to sell people? He's the high school, jock running for president. He's like, I'm going to give free pudding cups and we're all going to get like, we're all going to get A's and everybody's going to go to the best college if you vote for me. And then, there's Kamala Harris going like, I'm going to work with the janitorial staff to raise their funds so they'll be more willing to work and clean the school so we can have a better environment. I am going to work with the principal to create programs that are going to not just dictate how much we learn, but also how much we are capable of as people. And then the rest of the student body's like, boo, I want free pudding cups. It's like, he's never going to get you free pudding cups. He's never going to get you free pudding cups. And that's what the problem is. Like, your job, I'm sorry, Alvaro, boring as hell, but important as fuck.
No, dude.
No, but I'm saying but I'm saying important as fuck.
I hear you.
For the layman to hear Alvaro, to hear like, oh, Alvaro is going to Amazon to sit down with their lawyers to trying to get Amazon to get their employees to have more reasonable hours, to not have to be on painkillers. That sort of work takes years, but it is important, and people don't realize how vital these questions and this work is, that you have to be in there with somebody like you who every day is going up against Jeff Bezos, and the progress might be slow because, again, we want due process. This is what we also want for everybody.
I think, but look, here's what I'd say. I think we need to call things what they are, because sadly, I don't think Vice President Harris said stuff like you said it even. You know, I think if Vice President Harris had gone out there and being like, yeah, look, that's nice, Donald, but you know who I'm going to talk to? I'm going to talk to the janitor, right? I'm going to talk to the principal. I'm going to ask him what's going on, and we're going to make it better. Instead, she gave these kind of mealy-mouthed answers about like, oh, like my plan and the economists. You know, a majority of economists polled support my plan. But I think the bigger issue, because look, I give a lot of credit to the vice president. She had a very short time window. Honestly, I think she got screwed by President Biden in waiting so long to give her that lane. But and so I'm sympathetic to the fact that she wasn't, you know, on her A game immediately every single day for 53 days. But I think there was two bigger problems, and we just have to be honest about it. The first is she cozied up to private equity and hedge funds, probably because she needed a lot of money to get into her account coffers really quickly. And so this guy, Reid Hoffman, this CEO, this billionaire, says like, oh, you shouldn't commit to keep Lena Khan at the FTC. And so she refused, even though Lena Khan's one of the few people who was popular on the left and the right. You know, there's like J.D. Vance was like, I think she's doing a good job. Like there's a whole bunch of Republican farmers, small business owners, you know, actual entrepreneurs with like apps who are like, that lady's cool because she stands up for me, right? And yet Harris, Vice President Harris, wouldn't sign a dotted line. And then here's the other thing, guys, just to call it like it is, like she wouldn't denounce the horror that is Gaza.
Yeah,
there are babies dying right now because they can't eat, because there's no formula. And every time Harris was asked about it, she'd give like some talking points about how she is working in earnest with the president to stop this. And, you know, I do think that she was probably in the room pushing harder than Biden. You know, I think Biden got played by Netanyahu. He got played by Netanyahu. But and I think Harris was probably trying behind the scenes, but on the outside, she couldn't convince Democratic voters that she was going to stop the starvation in Gaza and the slaughter of innocent people in Gaza. And a whole lot of Democrats stayed home because, and ultimately this is what I am for. I am for the little guy, right? I am for the little guy. And I think most people are for this, like whether it's a worker or a small business owner or a farmer, or like the little kid who just wants to eat in Gaza, right? Like I think most people are for kids and working people. And ultimately, I think Democrats need to go to a world where I think Zohran Mamdani's doing this. Right? You know, I think he's talking about how working people, you know, we need to focus on the guy who runs the halal cart and the bodega owner and the other small retailers and businesses and the regular people just trying to get paid. Right? And that I think really resonates with people. And I think that Vice President Harris, you know, I think she's a good person. I think she has a good heart. I think she tried at her best in that circumstance. But like, you know, the way the cards fell, she got way too close to the billionaires, and she just couldn't speak to what young people saw every day on TikTok. You know, there's only so many little children in pieces that you can see. And look, like what happened on October 7th was a horror, right? Like, I don't want innocent people killed, right? I understand, you know, wanting to try to stop that, but killing 20,000 kids doesn't make, those 1,000 people come back to life,
Exactly.
and doesn't protect anyone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of what happened here.
And I think you're so right. Like when you look at, you're talking about top versus bottom, right? And you see how Trump goes out there and attacks the bottom. The reason why you don't have healthcare is because of immigrants, which is a lie, by the way. The reason why, you don't have a good job is because of immigrants. Lie. But at least Trump is saying, I'm coming after someone wholeheartedly because they're hurting you. It's a full lie. But Kamala couldn't have been on that side, really, like doing the Bernie Sanders or the message that you're trying to get out there. It's like, no, I'm going to go after Jeff Bezos. Kamala couldn't come out there. I'm going to come after these people who are the ones stealing your healthcare. I'm coming out after CEOs. This is before, what happened. Like, I'm coming after CEOs. Y'all getting paid way too much. The fact that you're 100 times what your less employees, but she couldn't, a lot of people, again, didn't believe that she would come after, corporations, or that she would do something in Gaza. And then the other people were like, well, Trump at least is going to go after someone, and it's the immigrants. You know what I mean? So Kamala didn't really put out there, I'm going after someone. And unfortunately, that's what we need.
Well, and like, it is what we need. And maybe, sometimes I'll say stuff like you've been hearing me saying, they're like, people are like, Alvaro, like, we got to unite. We can't divide. And unfortunately, look, the funny thing about people who know me is that, like, I try really hard to get along with everybody. I try to be kind to as many people as I can, but I also think that when it's time to fight, you got to fight.
Yeah.
When all other options are off the table and all you have is fight, you got to do it. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And so now is the time for action. Now is the time for fighting. And here's the thing that I would say that maps exactly on to something you said, which is, I don't know if this is true in New York, but in DC, particularly in like suburban liberal circles, there's a lot of people who are like, man, I don't understand how he got elected. I don't understand how the president got elected. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it literally doesn't compute.
Yeah.
And the sad fact is, when this president was talking about, China and illegals, like a lot of us were like, man, this guy hates my cousins.
Yeah.
Like, man, this guy, just hates me, whereas other people, unfortunately, were like, oh, that guy's talking about the economy. Right.
Yeah.
Like he used he was being xenophobic, but he was also speaking to like that animal part of our brains where people are like, look, man, I just need to put food on the table.
Right.
And I don't care, how I do it, but like, he spoke to that desperation that a lot of people in this country have, where they're like, dude, I don't care. I just got medical bills. I got grocery bills. And I just need to be able to pay this stuff. And he hit it with that xenophobic note.
Yeah.
And what I wish the vice president had done is just say, like, look, I know you are struggling. This is my, number one, I care about you. Number two, this is what I'm doing on day one to get you to pay your bills. Right. And instead the focus, I understand, was on like democracy. I understand that, but it just wasn't the message that people needed to hear. They needed to hear from her a principled yes way, but a just crystal clear argument for how she was going to help people pay the bills.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get it. We just didn't get it.
Hopefully messaging come 2026 and 2028 will shift that way.
We'll see. Well, I'm just being conscious of time. So just closing the loop, Alvaro, on, what is it like to stand up to Trump, right? So going back to your legal case, and we saw the good news that both you and Ms. Slaughter won your cases against the administration, right? So it was deemed illegal, those firings. I believe Rebecca was reinstated, or she was able to get her job back, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes. So here's the thing people need to know. We won that first court case.
Yeah.
We won. Commissioner Slaughter was able to go back to work. Now we just suffered a setback, like it got stayed again, by the courts.
No.
But
wait, when did that happen? Today or something?
It's a long story, but yes, it's been happening. There was like a failed stay petition, and they won the petition in the courts of appeal. But here's the takeaway: is like, you got to fight, and you can win.
Yep.
And these guys aren't made of steel. You know, they
not Trump.
That's right. They're made.
Well, I mean,
they're
he's
made
steal. He's definitely steal. He's made of a lot of stealing and things he took, but not
they're you know, it's just a lot of memes and a lot of big talk,
Mhm.
and these guys can be beat. And that is what people need to know, is that this isn't forever. There's a lot of people playing a lot of short games right now. A lot of like, I'm gonna get me that bag, you know, and screw it if, you know, if I do some illegal stuff along the way. And I think that's a lot of short-term thinking. And on the other side, if you, you know, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican and you think that stuff is wrong is happening, you got to know that things can get better. Things will get better. You got to fight. You got to get out in the street. You got to post on social media. You got to poke these guys in the eye. You got to make fun of these guys. You know, like South Park did. There is hope. You just got to try. You got to try.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I think that's a great note to end that. I know, Alvaro, we talked about maybe talking about surveillance. Just FYI, everyone, ICE is surveilling you. In case you didn't know, it's gotten worse.
I'll come back. I'll come back and we'll talk
do
about
part
surveillance.
two. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah, but no, seriously, Alvaro, thank you. You know, we know that there's still all these legal battles and everything, but you moved on from that. But you know, I do like the fact that when it happened, you didn't just back down and you didn't go quietly into the night the way most people would just be like, you know what, I don't want to make any noise. No, I don't want to zoom in. I'm using my hands too much. My camera's like, you want to zoom in? Like, no, I'm just Dominican.
Just play soft music and just zoom in to Che.
See, this is why we need free trade commissioner, because we need more cameras that know Latinos use their hands and don't have to like.
Here, I'll whistle
it. And bring it in. But you know, I appreciate not giving up and staying out there, and you're still looking for other ways to help the community and help inform people. And I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. Seriously.
Thank you for the work you guys are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and it is it's something that we just on behalf of just everyday citizens and people of the US, we just need to see that from people in government, right? Like exactly what you did, and standing up to just blatant authoritarianism and dictatorship. Like that's what it is, and we just need to call it what it is, right? And to take a stand that way, in the same way that Rebecca did, in the same way that we've seen other colleagues of y'all do. It's incredible to see. So thank you again.
And hopefully, and maybe I'm just being too whimsical here, but I hope like the pendulum really does swing the other way. Like where right now people are like radical evil is sort of like the thing, like we're gonna gut these agencies, we're gonna make the rich richer. I hope it swings the other way, where radical good becomes the norm, where it's like, no, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna make sure these company pays, and we're gonna make sure these employees are well off, and we're gonna raise 100 million people out of poverty in the next 5 years, and we're gonna like make your head spin at how much freaking healthcare you have. You could actually go see somebody for that head spinning you're feeling. You know what I mean? Like that's where I hope it goes the other way. I hope the pendulum swings the other way, that we do radical good because government is supposed to be looking out for the people in theory. And I want to see it actually do what we have been promised it's supposed to do.
So Alvaro, we just wanted to give you a quick moment to share with our audience. You know, we know you're now with the American Economic Liberties Project and doing great work there. But for people that kind of want to keep up with your work and your message, if you want to share with our audience where everyone can find you.
Yeah, I am at Bedoya USA on X and Blue Sky, and I kind of like I'm using USA because a lot of people, because I'm like, no, this is my country. You're not taking this country.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that's I'm at Bedoya USA on X and Blue Sky. That's probably the best way to keep in touch with me right now.
Great.
Thanks
for that.
Hey, again, I think we're good here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We're definitely going to keep in touch with you, have you back
For
down
sure.
the road. And everybody, thank you for listening. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.